Okay, March 19th. In 1919, the Senate rejects the Treaty of Versailles. This was something Wilson had gone over to Europe, traveling over to try to negotiate and end World War One. Part of this was Wilson's 14 points, and part of it was this Treaty of Versailles. And the Senate had to approve the treaty by a two-thirds vote. It was controlled by the Republicans, so he had to get the Republicans to come along. And the one thing, probably his biggest mistake is he didn't engage the Senate in the negotiations to try and understand their views and to involve them and make them part of the process. He went by himself. He'd used to been a university professor, president of Princeton University, so he's an academic. So he believed he had the rights to go do these things. So ultimately, the Senate would ultimately reject it. This was one of the first votes. It would actually go on to be voted on multiple times as they tried to tweak the treaty to try and see what amendments they could make. Ultimately, the United States would sign their own treaty with the Central Powers, so Germany and the others, but not until 1921 when Warren Harding was president. So after this defeat, Wilson would go on a national tour to try to sell his treaty. Ultimately, had a stroke, a massive stroke, while he was on the tour. Came back, and his condition wasn't really known until 1920. It was made to the American people, but he was pretty much an invalid. His wife Edith controlled access to him. He actually considered running again in 1920 for a third term, which would have been not unprecedented. Grant tried it, and somebody else tried it. But his condition, his health, just would not allow him to do it. So all of his friends basically said, "You can't do this." But he did think about running again in 1920. So that's what I have for you today. The United States Senate rejects the Treaty of Versailles, in part because of the League of Nations, and they felt like the treaty would tie us to the Europeans, and we did not want to be compelled to go to their defense if they started another war, which they did in 1930s. So that's what I have for you today. I will see you tomorrow.